Welcome to Grandpa's True Scary Stories, where every story you hear was once real. Tonight's tale is a chilling true paranormal story titled The Mirror Broadcast. If you love true scary stories, haunted objects, and reflections that tell you more than they should, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because some mirrors don't just reflect, they receive. All right, let's begin. I bought the mirror at a Sunday flea market because it looked like it remembered how to be important. It wasn't big, maybe 3 feet high, oval with an old silvered surface and a frame carved with tiny leaves that didn't look like any plant I've ever seen. The vendor called it a parlor mirror. He said it came from a house that was losing its memory room by room. He said it like a joke, but it landed wrong. I'd moved into a different apartment a month earlier after the kind of breakup that leaves you liking silence more than it likes you back. I thought a mirror would make the place feel larger, or friendlier, or less like a room you use to practice not being watched. The vendor named a price that basically meant, "Take it away, it bothers me." I didn't bargain. The only rules I had left at the time were, buy the thing that feels honest, leave the thing that performs. Back home, I leaned the mirror against the wall opposite the window. It caught the light in a specific way. The glass wasn't flat anymore. It bowed very slightly, so the reflections stretched a little at the edges, like the room was reaching toward itself. I don't have a better word for it. The mirror made the room want to be more room. It smelled faintly like lemon oil and old paper, like someone had cleaned it for people who cared decades ago, and the scent never moved out. The first night, nothing happened. That's what we say when we don't know what to call small things. The only nothing I noticed was that the mirror's surface stuttered when cars passed outside. Not just a light ripple, a stutter, as if the glass was catching a broadcast, not of the street, but of some street, some room. I told myself old glass does that. It isn't perfectly flat. It's a liquid frozen into manners. It flows. All the trivia you tell yourself so you can sleep. But I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch and watched my reflection watching me. And every now and then, my reflected breathing lagged a half-second behind. If you're wondering how you can tell, you can tell. Your body knows the rhythm of its twin. I didn't say anything about it to anyone. The trick with grief is, if something odd happens, you file it under it's me, not the world. It keeps you from having to admit you brought a haunted thing home. Night 2. The mirror didn't show my living room. It showed a living room. Same size, same window, same crown moulding. But not my furniture. A high-backed chair I don't own. A braided rug that would make sense in a different decade. The light in the mirror room had a warmer colour, like it came through old glass. I moved left. My reflection moved left. But the room behind him stayed the other room. It wasn't misalignment. It was overlay, like a TV signal caught through bad weather. I leaned close until my breath clouded the glass, which old glass loves to do. When I cleared a circle with my palm, the overlay sharpened enough to show a shape sitting in the chair. I flinched and laughed at the same time. The shape was me. That's a nasty trick old Silver plays. Double ghosting, second images. I stood back and did the thing you do when you want to feel sane. I scratched my eyebrow, and the man in the chair scratched his eyebrow, a half-second late. Fine. Reflection. Latency. I could name it. But his background didn't match mine. Where my bookshelf should have been, his room had a mantel. Where my floor lamp lives, his room had nothing. And the chair was wrong. I don't own that chair. I don't own that rug. The sense I got wasn't past or future. It was near, like an apartment laid over mine at a slight angle. The vendor's line about a house losing memory walked back into my head and found a place to sit down. Night 3, the mirror didn't show me at all at first. It showed the empty other room. A lamp I don't own turned itself on in that other place. The braided rug had a dark oval stain that didn't look like a spill. That's when I realized the mirror broadcast had sound. Not loud, but visible. The lamp's switch clicked and the glass trembled like a coin flicked against the inside of a jar. I said out loud, "Okay, we don't do this." It's funny how we say "we" to rooms. It makes us feel like we can bring a house to a meeting. When I stepped closer, my reflection arrived, me slightly after me, and the other room dimmed. I put my hand flat against the glass. It was cool in the way water thinks it's cool when it knows it'll be warm if you commit. Something touched back. Not a hand, a temperature. The feeling of air warming under the fingerprint of a candle. I pulled my hand away and the mirror sighed. That's not a metaphor. There was a soft sound from the frame, like air moving through a carved wooden throat. My chest went hollow in that fast way your chest does when stairs seem shorter than your feet expected. "All right," I said to myself, the way a parent says it to a kid before they both decide if a crying fit is worth it. We're not lonely enough to manufacture this. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a pack of sticky notes. If the mirror was going to be a TV, I was going to program it like one. "Who are you?" I wrote on a note and stuck it to the glass. I wish this next part were less dramatic, because it would be easier to live with Mom. The letters on the note bled for a second, like ink in warm water. When I peeled it off, the rectangle of glass under it had a faint film, not quite fog, and on that film, a fingertip wrote a word. "Hello, I didn't sleep." I wrote, "When?" The fingertip wrote, "Now." I wrote, "Where?" It wrote, after a moment, like someone spelling slowly, "Here." I didn't want to ask who. I didn't want it to want to be someone. So I asked, "What do you want?" The fingertip answered the way I hate most, with a question. "Do you see me?" I said out loud, because writing it felt like a contract. "I see you." My reflection's mouth moved a fraction off time. The other room's lamp hummed just loudly enough to carry the idea of hum. The next night, I turned all the lights off and sat on the floor in front of the mirror with the window behind me so the only light came from the street. If you want to meet something you shouldn't, that's how you get an introduction. The mirror's surface breathed with the passing cars, and when the street quieted, the other room showed itself more steadily. The chair was turned toward me now. It had a blanket folded over one arm, the pattern worn halfway to memory. There was a picture frame on a low table. I couldn't make out the face, only the shape of someone standing with their shoulders slightly forward, a posture you learn from carrying something you don't put down. I did the grown-up thing and made rules. "Rule 1, I told the mirror. "We don't do this after midnight." The mirror didn't disagree. "Rule 2, no touching." The mirror breathed like a thoughtful listener. "Rule 3, we don't speak names." The mirror thought about it. The glass fogged at my height and cleared. This is what it did instead of nodding. "That would be fine," I told myself. "It's just a room where the light is wrong." I held those rules for a week. Then the mirror began broadcasting at noon. This time it wasn't the other room. It was a hallway, narrower than mine, with wallpaper that had grown tired of being flowers. The camera angle, no, not a camera, the glass angle was lower, like it sat on the floor. The end of the hall had a window painted shut. It wasn't my window, it wasn't my building. The glass was showing somewhere that had never learned me. On the 5th day of noon broadcasts, a person walked through the hallway in the mirror. They were just a glimpse, more suggestion than detail. Shoulder, elbow, a hem. They moved like someone living with a list pressed into their pocket. I stepped closer and the figure turned, as if they'd felt the difference between their air and mine, and that's when I saw their face. I wish I could tell you it was a stranger. It would be easier to pin to a board. The face was mine, a half-second off, aged from a different direction, a little thinner at the cheeks, the eyes carrying a tired pride I've seen in last interviews and first goodbyes. The figure lifted their hand. I lifted mine. We met the glass. The touch felt like warm metal, the way a coin smells if you hold it too long. "Rule 2, I said. "No touching." They smiled. My smile the day I'm being careful for someone else. They let their hand drop. Then the mirror shifted. Not the glass, the scene. A cut, like a well-timed edit between breaths. The hallway became a diner that looked like every diner that ever meant it. A booth with a red vinyl seat. A bar with a pie case. A waitress in the background, counting out change like she still liked math. My reflection sat in the booth with a woman whose face didn't resolve. Not blurred, just not chosen, like the mirror couldn't decide which version she should be. It held her shape the way fog holds trees. I opened my mouth to say something, and the woman in the mirror turned toward the glass and put a finger to her lips. "Shh." I shut up. I don't know why I obeyed a woman whose face the glass hadn't picked yet. Maybe because it made sense. Some people's faces are a series of decisions other people made. Some rooms too. The woman whose face wouldn't settle touched my reflection's hand. I put my own hands behind my back so I wouldn't reach toward the glass like a bad brother. The mirror cut again. A different room, a different day. The other me stood in front of a fireplace that wasn't lit. He said something I couldn't hear and laughed at his own joke in the quiet way I do when I'm trying not to move the air around someone's sadness. I said, like an idiot narrating a documentary, "Okay, so this is... I don't know what this is." The mirror exhaled and the glass clouded with that handwriting again. "Don't turn away." I didn't. I stood there the way you stand when a dog you don't know approaches. Chin up so you look like you belong here, palms open so if it wants to leave, it can. The scenes kept coming. Hallway, diner, fireplace, an office with a window I wanted to steal, a hospital corridor with night nurses in shoes that know how to forget to squeak. I watched my face across the glass as it practiced looking like a person you could tell bad news to without making them carry it alone. I liked him. I also felt something in me curve toward a decision I hadn't earned. Around the 10th day, the broadcasts changed. They weren't random windows into a life anymore. They were in order. Breakfast light came after a night mistake. Tuesday followed Monday. A calendar in a montage when the editor wants the audience to understand time without making them work for it. At night, I told myself out loud, "It's an artifact. The glass holds images. Silver remembers. An old mirror is like an old record without grooves." That argument works if the mirror plays the past. It doesn't work when the mirror plays next Wednesday. because on day 11, the glass showed my living room with me in it, wearing clothes I hadn't laid out yet, reaching for my phone to answer a call that didn't come for another hour. I froze the way horror movies forget to show. I stood there with the kind of dumb patience that feels like politeness because you don't want to spook a dream if it is one. When the future call came, an hour later, it was a job offer I would have loved last year. It meant travel. It meant leaving again in the kind of way that leaves a person alone even when you call every day. I looked at the mirror, and the mirror looked like something that had already watched me make the choice and wasn't going to repeat itself. I didn't take the job. I'd like to say that was the mirror's fault. It wasn't. It was mine, and using the mirror as an excuse felt like the kind of lie that stains you at the edges. But I did look at the glass when I said no, as if I were asking it to record me into the right version. No. That night, the mirror waited until exactly 3:12 a.m. to show me a new scene. The other me sat in that high-backed chair with the blanket and looked older in a way I recognized from photographs taken at dinner tables when everyone's pretending to not be sentimental. He held the hand of the woman whose face hadn't decided, and he said something I couldn't hear. She nodded like she'd known the sentence before he said it. Then she blew out a candle and the room went dark. But the mirror stayed bright, like the glass had learned to glow without help. I said, without wanting to hear myself, "Okay, so the broadcast is going somewhere." The next day, the mirror didn't show living rooms or diners. It showed a hallway in a building I knew a little too well. Mine. My apartment door on the right. The camera angle, the glass angle, was low again, looking up like a child peering around the corner to see if a parent's come home. The door opened in the mirror. I stepped into the scene wearing the shirt I was wearing right now. I walked toward the mirror with my phone to my ear and said a sentence I hadn't said yet. "Hey, it's me. Are you up?" I hung up the phone. In my living room, the real one, my phone didn't ring because I hadn't called anyone. In the mirror, I set the phone down and crossed to the mirror. I stood where I was standing now, and then this part I can't make pretty. The other me put his palm flat to the glass, and his hand came through, just a few inches. Like the glass had become surface tension, and other me's hand had learned to be a leaf. The skin looked a different colour on my side of the air, like crossing paint line on a map. I didn't touch him back. Rule 2 remembered me, but I didn't run either, because it would have been rude. He withdrew his hand like a person taking back a small mistake without apology. The mirror wrote with the fingertip again. "Don't turn away." I said, "I'm not." I stood too long, which is my way of showing the right kind of fear. Then the mirror cut to the diner again. This time the woman's face had decided. She looked exactly like the woman I didn't stay for last year. Not younger, not older. Exactly. Same mouth, same eyelashes that make you think of thumbs. Same habit of looking out the window before she laughs, like she has to check if the sky needs anything. I sat down on the floor. I don't know why. Maybe because the mirror had earned more height than I had. You don't have to fix it. You just have to be here. The mirror is a liar and a thief. It steals your best memories and lies about their order and gives them back to you in a way that makes you believe you were better at the time than you were. If you're wondering why I kept watching, it's because the mirror made me feel like I could still participate in a version of myself who was brave. On night 15, the broadcasts stopped showing scenes and started showing angles, close-ups, the back of my hand. The window latch I never oil because I tell myself I like the noise. The seam in my couch where a crumb from a past life hid like a pearl. The bell of a lamp. The mirror wanted me to learn the surfaces of my own life like I was entrusted with inventory. When the mirror showed my front door, I wanted to smash it. Not the door, the glass. It felt like the mirror was tutoring me in my own house's version of kindness, and I was failing the exam. I didn't smash it. I tapped a knuckle against the frame instead, the way you tap wood like it's still a tree and you want it to remember. The mirror wrote again. "Don't turn away." "From what?" I asked, finally, the way you ask your uncle when he tells a long story and forgets the point. "From you? From me? From her?" The glass fogged and cleared without writing. Then it showed me the hallway again, the diner again, the fireplace again, like it was proving it could. Finally, it showed the hospital corridor. The night nurse, the shoes that know how to forget to squeak. A door at the end of the hall in the mirror opened a little. A light blinked above it in a rhythm that made my chest ache. Not fast, not urgent, the quiet kind. The light that means someone is breathing while the machine watches. The other me in that other corridor sat in a plastic chair with his elbows on his knees. He looked up at the light like it was a moon that owed him nothing. The mirror wrote one more time, "Don't turn away." Then it went black. Not dark, black. Absorbing light, not reflecting it. It looked like a turned-off TV when the room didn't have anything else to look at. I did what you do when a screen goes black and you're not sure you should turn it back on. I waited. I waited through a whole hour. I waited until the day understood what we were doing and decided not to interfere. At 3:12, the glass cleared and showed my living room. The other me was sitting on my couch, leaning forward like a person who has started a sentence that might take a while. He looked up into the lens, not at his reflection, but into the lens, and said, "Are you up?" I said, "Yes." He nodded. He said, "Don't turn away." I said, "I won't." Then he did something I didn't understand until the next night. He reached behind his head and lifted something invisible like a strap. It looked like he was taking off weight without a name. He set it on the coffee table in the mirror. It made a sound I felt in my wrists. The sound metal makes when a key ring finds itself. The mirror wrote with a fingertip in a handwriting that wasn't his or mine. "Thank you," I cracked quietly, the way ice does when the temperature finally makes a decision. I put my hand to the glass, Rule 2, a suggestion, not a law. The surface was warm. The mirror stayed bright into the morning, and then went into that dull silver that means it just wants to show you you, which is its worst trick. I turned it toward the wall. I didn't put a sheet over it. That felt like admitting it had earned theatre. The next day, my phone rang, and it was a nurse I didn't know asking me if I was authorized. I wasn't. You can be the person someone loves and still not be authorized to be part of their aftermath. She used my name like it belonged to the situation anyway. I told her I would be there. I sat in the plastic chair with elbows on knees and watched the light that wakes and sleeps for you. The machine ticked. The woman in the bed did not have the same face as the mirror asked her to have. She had her own, the one the world did not invent for her. I said out loud, because the room was going to remember me whichever way, "I'm here," And the nurse in shoes that don't squeak put her hand on my shoulder like we were old colleagues. That night, I didn't turn the mirror back around. I didn't need to. The apartment already felt like an audience that had seen the ending. The mirror broadcast twice more after that. Once to show a hallway without a blinking light. Once to show the high-backed chair with the blanket and no one in it. Then it stopped. It didn't go black again. It just became a mirror, which I now know is the worst haunting of all. When a thing that was more than itself decides to be itself again, it makes you feel like the problem is you. I kept the mirror. People expect the lesson to tuck into a neat box. Get rid of the haunted thing and you get rid of the haunt. But I've learned since that haunted things are only honest around people who can hear their honesty. If I sold it to someone else, the mirror would go back to being just a mirror, or worse, it would teach someone who didn't ask to be taught. I'm not saying I've become a better person. I don't know if the mirror wants that. I think it wants accounting. When I wake in the night now, I don't check my phone. I check the mirror, and if it's dark, I tell it what time it is anyway, because some rooms want the truth said out loud. Sometimes the glass fogs with a single fingertip. It draws a small circle and then erases it. I don't know if that's hello or goodbye. I say both softly, like I don't want to wake anyone. I never asked how the vendor came by the mirror, and I won't. I've revised the only rules that matter. Rule 1. If a thing asks you not to turn away, don't. Rule 2. If a room broadcasts a life to you, watch it like you're the person in it. Rule 3. When it's over, keep the glass clean. Not because it's polite, because it helps you know whether the face you're looking at is yours yet. If you're wondering whether I see her face in it anymore, not the mirror's version, hers. I do, but in the normal way that makes sense. In photos, in corners, in the way my hand remembers a weight it lifted once. I do not see her in the mirror broadcast. The mirror taught me that saying, "I'm here," is something you can do even when you're not reflected. Sometimes, when the lights are off and the street is quiet, the mirror shows the diner again, just a hint. The curve of a booth, the considerate way a waitress stacks plates so the heavy ones go on the bottom. It shows an empty seat with a folded blanket on it. Not dramatic, not a sign, just a place where someone was comfortable. When it does, I sit on my side of the glass and I wait the way you wait for a train. Not because it's going to change your day, but because you want to know if it's on time. And if the mirror writes "don't turn away again" someday, I won't. I'll stand there with my hands behind my back so the glass doesn't have to choose which of us to warm. I'll watch the life it loves and be grateful it invited me. Because in the end, the broadcast wasn't a haunting. It was a courtesy. A room saying, "I recorded you and I'll play you back, but only long enough for you to learn where to stand this time." And when the mirror only shows a room that looks like mine and a face that looks like mine at the same time as mine, when it's only a mirror again, I put a hand to the glass and feel the cool and remind myself that not every honest silence is a loss. Sometimes it's the channel changing back to the one where you live. The end. Thank you for listening to my story. If this tale kept you awake tonight, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because there are many more true scary stories, haunted objects, and real nightmares waiting behind the glass. This was Grandpa's True Scary Stories, where every whisper hides a truth, and every truth hides a nightmare. The end. Thank you for listening to my story. If this tale kept you awake tonight, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because there are many more true scary stories, haunted objects, and real nightmares waiting behind the glass. This was Grandpa's True Scary Stories, where every whisper hides a truth, and every truth hides a nightmare.